Okay, let's dive in. What if we told you that a seemingly small component, something like a vaporizer canister, is actually critical?
Critical in some really major
Yeah,
systems.
exactly. We're talking hospital life support, the systems cleaning the air in your car, even, personal wellness devices.
Yeah, it sounds pretty niche when you first say it.
Right. But prepare for that aha
Mm.
moment. Because these little canisters, they're actually essential infrastructure. They power huge parts of our modern world.
They really are one of those hidden gears, you could say, in the whole machine of modern life.
Totally. You don't see them, but if they weren't there, well, things would grind to a halt.
Definitely.
And that's exactly why today we're doing a deep dive. We're digging into the global market specifically for vaporizer canisters.
And we've got some solid data to work with.
We do. We're using a pretty fast-getting market report. It's packed with verified data, and it maps out the market size back in 2021. Gives us a look at the near future, 2025, and then projects all the way out to 2033.
So our mission here isn't just to, read out numbers.
Yeah.
We want to understand what's really driving this, well, frankly, explosive growth
Yeah.
and where it's happening most intensely around the globe. And maybe most importantly, why this quiet corner of the global economy should actually matter to you, our listener.
Whether you're in healthcare, automotive tech, or maybe just curious about what makes things tick.
Exactly. Consider this your shortcut.
Okay, so let's zoom out first. Big picture. What does the global market look like? What are the top-line numbers telling us?
Well, what's really striking is just the scale of the expansion. If you look back at 2021, the global market was valued at around $1.35 billion.
Okay.
Just 4 years later, so 2025, it's projected to hit $2.4 billion.
Already a big jump.
But then the forecast out to 2033, it shows this really dramatic surge, climbing way up to nearly $7.8 billion.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Almost tripling just from 2025 to 2033.
Yeah.
That's not just growth, that's serious acceleration.
Yeah. It translates to a really robust compound annual growth rate, CAGR, of 15.7% over that longer time frame.
Right.
And that kind of sustained, double-digit growth, it points right back to those powerful forces we touched
The
on.
drivers.
Exactly. Soaring demand, fueled by advances and just wider use in healthcare, the growing market for wellness devices, and also that critical need for effective emission control in cars worldwide.
Okay, global picture.
Eclair.
Rapid, significant growth.
Mm-hmm.
But is it happening everywhere equally, or are some regions really leading the charge? Let's maybe start with North America. What's its role?
North America is definitely a powerhouse region, historically has been, and it still is for this market.
Right.
Looking at the data, it was a huge chunk of the global market in 2021, valued over $530 million.
Yeah.
And it's projected to grow significantly from there, expected to reach nearly $3 billion by 2033.
And within North America, I assume the U.S. is the main driver.
Oh, absolutely. The United States is, well, the undeniable leader within the region. It's pushing a large share of those numbers.
And why is that? What's the key factor there?
It's really about the deep integration, how these canisters are built into advanced healthcare equipment and increasingly home care technologies too.
Oh, okay. So as healthcare delivery changes, moving more into the home.
Exactly. These components are right there, following that trend. It makes sense, given the scale of the U.S. healthcare system and that whole aging in place movement.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What about Canada and Mexico? How do they fit into the North American picture?
They're showing really strong, consistent growth, too. Right alongside the U.S.-Canada's market, for instance, it's projected to grow from around 89 million in 2021
Okay.
to well over $500 million by 2033.
Wow.
And Mexico also shows really promising expansion, moving from about 53 million up to nearly 300 million in that same period.
So definitely a regional growth story, not just the U.S.
Correct. It's broad-based growth across North America.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears. Across the Atlantic, Europe. How does its market stack up?
Europe's another major player, although maybe with slightly different dynamics compared to North America's really explosive growth.
How so?
It represents a very significant and I'd say steady market. It grew from roughly 425 million back in 2021, and it's projected to hit about 2.3 billion by 2033. So still very strong growth.
And the drivers there?
Nope.
Similar.
Largely driven by, well, established healthcare systems and, importantly, the needs of an aging population across the continent. That requires, sustained access to medical support devices, and many of those use these canisters.
Right. And which countries are the standouts in Europe?
Germany is a clear leader. They're often at the forefront of medical device innovation, which, directly fuels demand for these components.
Makes sense.
Their market grew from over 80 million in 2021, and it's projected to hit nearly 500 million by 2033.
Okay. What about others? UK, France?
Yeah, the UK and France also show really solid progress. Each one is expected to reach well over 200 million by 2033. It reflects that consistent demand we were talking about.
And
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
It reflects that consistent demand we were talking about.
And the report mentioned some other interesting trends in Europe, too.
It did. Countries like Russia, for example, the projections showed a particularly steep growth curve, especially from 2025 out to 2033.
Interesting.
Yeah, it shows how demand can really surge in specific markets, even within a generally steady region. And even smaller markets like Luxembourg, they're contributing too. It shows this component's utility is just really widespread across the continent.
Okay, so we've covered these, let's say, established markets with strong, steady growth. Now, Asia-Pacific. This region often comes up when we talk about, well, sheer pace. Is that the case here?
Oh, absolutely. Asia-Pacific is where we see the fastest projected growth globally, hands down. We're talking a CAGR of 16.9%.
16.9, wow.
Yeah. Its market size is forecast to just explode. From 256 million in 2021 to a staggering 1.7 billion by 2033.
Incredible growth. What on earth is driving that level of acceleration?
It's a mix of factors, really. But a major engine is rapid urbanization. And tied to that, the expansion and modernization of healthcare infrastructure right across the region.
And who's leading within APAC?
China is the largest single market there, kind of mirroring its overall economic influence, right? Its market is expected to soar over $700 million by 2033.
And you mentioned India earlier, having a particularly strong growth rate.
Yes. India is a prime example of that urbanization and healthcare boom just propelling demand. Its market, okay, it's smaller than China's in absolute dollars.
Sure.
But it's showing one of the strongest percentage growth rates anywhere in the world, growing from 31 million in 2021 to a projected 228 million by 2033.
That really underscores the increasing access to and demand for modern medical tech, maybe wellness devices too, in a rapidly developing economy.
Precisely.
How do other major economies there like Japan and South Korea fit into this picture?
They're also significant contributors, which makes sense, reflecting their established medical and tech sectors. Japan's market is on track to reach over 116 million by 2033.
Oh.
And South Korea is similarly projected to pass the 100 million mark.
And Australia. Southeast Asia.
Also showing robust growth. Australia and the markets across Southeast Asia, too. It indicates this isn't just, a China-India story. It's a really widespread regional trend.
Good point. Okay, let's move south. South America. What are the drivers looking like there, and which countries are leading the way?
In South America, we see the growth being driven by growing healthcare needs, definitely, and also the adoption of more advanced consumer devices that might use these components.
Okay, and the leader?
Brazil leads the region. Its market is expected to grow from around 35 million back in 2021 to nearly 200 million by 2033.
And other notable markets in South America?
Argentina is also showing solid growth, projected to reach over 85 million by 2033. And then countries like Colombia, Peru, Chile, they're also contributing. It reflects that broader trend, expanding access to relevant tech and healthcare services across the continent.
Okay, nearly rounded the globe. Finally, the Middle East and Africa. How does this region fit into the global landscape for these canisters?
This region, it represents a smaller market overall, but it's steadily growing.
Okay.
So while you don't see the same scale as, say, North America or Asia Pacific, the data definitely points to consistent progress. Egypt and Turkey are key markets here.
And their projections?
Each is projected to reach nearly $20 million by 2033.
And what's fueling that growth in the Middle East and Africa? Are there specific drivers mentioned?
Yeah, the report points to a couple of things. Factors like the development of medical tourism in some areas, and also the increasing import of advanced medical equipment, and potentially automotive tech too. These trends create these sort of specific pockets of demand for critical components like these canisters.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground. Global numbers, region by region, key drivers, growth rates. Let's try and synthesize this, bring it all together. What are the core takeaways you want our listener to walk away with from this deep dive?
Well, I think if we boil it all down, the main insight is this. The vaporizer canister market, right? Even though it seems kind of small or niche.
Yeah.
Unassuming.
Exactly. It's actually a really powerful indicator of some major global trends. It shows remarkable potential and resilience. It's expanding significantly across really diverse economies.
Right. It's not just growth in one spot. We're seeing these strong established markets, the U.S., Germany, they keep growing, driven by innovation, existing infrastructure. But then you have these incredibly fast-growing markets like India, China, where the expansion is really tied to those bigger economic and demographic shifts. Urbanization, healthcare access.
Precisely. The demand is incredibly diversified.
Yeah.
And it's intrinsically linked to innovation in the devices that use these canisters.
Right.
It's linked to growing global healthcare demands, driven by demographics, better access to tech, and even evolving consumer lifestyles with more personal health and wellness tech coming online. So what does this mean for you, the listener, then? It means that understanding this market, it isn't just about crunching numbers.
No.
It's really about getting a kind of shortcut, a way into understanding the foundational infrastructure that underpins critical parts of our healthcare systems.
Yeah.
The technology we interact with every day, maybe even the future of transportation. It really highlights how these seemingly tiny components are absolutely essential gears in these massive global trends.
It really does. Makes you appreciate the hidden complexity and things we take for granted.
Absolutely. So thinking about all that, the vital applications, the diverse uses we've talked about, life-saving medical care, environmental controls, wellness tech, and that really striking growth trajectory we've seen projected for the next decade. It does raise a final question for you to think about. What new innovations, what emerging fields might suddenly find these unassuming vaporizer canisters absolutely indispensable in the coming years?
Yeah. Where else might they pop up?
Exactly. How might their quiet but critical role in our world continue to expand and, well, shape our future in ways we probably can't even predict today?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something really vital in healthcare, but maybe not always top of mind. Vaporizer canisters.
That's right.
We've been looking at a market report covering the latest trends and what's coming next.
And our goal here is really to unpack the key stuff from that report, because these aren't just like simple bottles. They're pretty sophisticated bits of kit for delivering anesthesia safely. The report shows this whole dynamic world behind them.
Okay, yeah, let's dig in. So fundamentally, these canisters are all about precision, right? Delivering those volatile anesthetics, sevoflurane, isoflurane, with really tight control. Super important for patient safety during operations.
Absolutely. And, the interesting thing the report highlights is this kind of push and pull.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Absolutely. And, the interesting thing the report highlights is this kind of push and pull. You've got forces driving growth, but also some pretty big challenges cropping up.
Okay, like what? What's driving the growth?
Well, on one hand, it's the pretty undeniable rise in healthcare demand globally. You look at major economies, India, China, Brazil, they're investing huge amounts in modernizing hospitals, more surgical capacity.
Right.
And that just directly means, well, a bigger need for anesthesia gear, including these canisters.
And it's not just the big city hospitals, is it? I think the report mentioned other areas, too.
No, exactly. It points to growth in things like veterinary surgery, even mobile surgical units going to remote places. So the demand isn't just for more canisters, but sometimes for ones that are tougher, more portable, reliable outside that standard hospital setup.
Okay. And what about the tech side?
Yeah, that's the other big driver. Technology's moving fast. Hospitals upgrade their operating rooms. They put in these advanced integrated anesthesia workstations, and that means they need vaporizers. And the canisters that are super efficient, digitally compatible.
So they can plug into the electronic health records and monitoring systems?
Exactly. They need to integrate seamlessly. And this pushes the canister manufacturers to work really closely with the companies making the actual anesthesia machines. The report calls them OEMs, original equipment manufacturers.
Right, OEMs. Okay, so working with them, integrating digitally, sounds like that could get complicated. Where did the challenges come in, according to the report?
Well, all that focus on precision technology integration, it definitely brings challenges. The report flags the high initial cost first off. Buying these advanced vaporizers and their canisters isn't cheap. Plus, there's the ongoing stuff, calibration, maintenance, It adds up.
And regulations, I imagine. Healthcare tech always has strict rules.
Oh, hugely stringent.
Yeah.
You got standards like ISO 8E601 that's specifically for anesthesia and respiratory gear, plus navigating FDA compliance. It all means rigorous testing, tons of paperwork, expensive certifications.
Yeah.
That can be a real barrier, especially for smaller clinics or hospitals maybe without massive budgets.
Okay, that makes sense. High costs, complex rules. But wasn't there something else, a kind of strategic shift mentioned? Something about total intravenous anesthesia? TIVIA.
Yes, TDI. That raises a really important sort of strategic question for this whole market. TDI relies only on injectable drugs. It completely bypasses the inhaled anesthetics. Now, it's not like taking over everywhere yet, especially maybe in developing markets, but the report does flag its growing use, particularly in developed healthcare systems.
Yeah.
It's seen as a potential long-term, threat to the traditional vaporizer canister market.
Because if you're not using the inhaled gas...
You don't need the vaporizer, and you don't need the canister. Simple as that.
Okay, wow. So you've got these big growth drivers, global demand, tech advances pulling one way, and then challenges like cost, regulation, and this potential TVA disruption pulling the other way. How's the market actually, responding?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. I think the manufacturers aren't just standing still. They're innovating. Quite intensely, actually. The report talks a lot about a move towards customization.
Customization. How so?
Developing canisters that are specific to one anesthetic agent, often using color coding, special keyed fill systems, maybe magnetic locks, all designed to stop someone accidentally putting the wrong drug in the wrong vaporizer.
Okay. So that's directly targeting safety, reducing human error.
Exactly. Reducing critical errors in, like, the operating room, which is... obviously a high-pressure place. It's a big deal.
Makes sense. Customization for safety?
Yeah.
What about other big trends, like sustainability? Is that a factor?
Absolutely, yeah. The market's definitely looking at environmental responsibility, too. So thinking about lighter materials, more durable maybe, potentially recyclable materials for the canisters themselves.
Okay.
And they're working with those OEM partners, again, on modular designs for the whole system. Things that are not just, better for the planet, but maybe also easier and cheaper to ship and install around the world.
Right. Adapting the actual physical product.
Yeah, and its whole life cycle, really.
So what seems like a fairly simple bit of kit is actually right at the crossroads of, global health trends, tech advances, safety rules, even green pressures.
Yeah, it's a market being pulled in quite a few different directions at once.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up based on the report.
Sure. So basically, vaporizer canisters. Absolutely vital for modern anesthesia. The market for them is growing, no doubt. That's pushed by global healthcare needs and tech improvements.
Right.
But they face real headwinds, too. High costs, tough regulations, and this sort of looming question mark from TVA.
And the industry's answer seems to be innovation.
Exactly. Innovation focused on making things safer through customization and also addressing environmental stuff.
All that dynamism packed into this essential but maybe overlooked component. Fascinating stuff from the report. So here's maybe something for you to think about until our next deep dive. Given you've got these really strong, almost opposing forces, growth drivers pushing one way, challenges and alternatives like TIVA pushing back, how might the actual role, maybe even the fundamental design of vaporizer canisters have to keep changing, keep evolving, just to stay relevant in the operating room of the future?
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.